Hey team, welcome to the Builders Ladder podcast that the top residential building company owners and general contractors listen to get their business ahead and buy back their time while earning more money. Here's what's in store today.
What got you to 2.5 to 3 mil revenue is not going to be the thing that's going to get you 2.5 to 6.
Yeah. Whack on like 25 more projects and then all of a sudden become more profitable. That's not how it works in our industry.
At this stage, we should be able to pick you up, throw you into Bali or Fiji for a month, and the business is operating very nice without you. They don't realize that like one tiny screw up on a project could eliminate all their profits that they worked on that one project.
The Builders Ladder is brought to you by The Professional Builder. Get proven systems and expert coaching to reclaim your time, make more profit, and build a systemized, profitable company that buys back your freedom.
What's up, everybody? Owen here from The Professional Builder, joined with Head of Member Success, Vinnie. What's up, brother?
How you doing, man?
Good, mate. Very good. Today's topic, 6 stages of growth in a residential building company. So most people will run up against bottlenecks at each of these stages, and they're quite unique. They're also different to other industries. So like in manufacturing, as you scale, quite often you achieve an economy of scale, so you get more profitable. It doesn't happen in building. You don't just like whack on like 25 more projects and then all of a sudden become more profitable. That's not how it works in our industry. No. And similarly to other stuff like professional services, like estimating or lawyers and accountants and stuff, like we got a completely different business model because there's a lot of materials involved. We're not just selling our time, we're selling, like maybe hopefully clipping the ticket on a little bit of the fixtures and the finishings and furnishings and all that sort of stuff that goes with it. So each stage requires a different mentality, a different process, a different type of skill set from different people. And we're going to kind of work through some of that today. Almost taking you from busy builder who uses these 2 things to get shit done.
Nice.
To business owner who uses people and process to solve their problems, to entrepreneur, which is the level of business ownership that you might choose or aspire to get to, where there's investments and things like that. But let's start kind of towards the beginning of the journey, which is around like the startup and the survival phase. So stage 1 and stage 2. So startup and survival is kind of like 0 to 1.2 million. Startup might be like your first 500K, and then survival is that 500K to 1.2 mil mark sort of thing in terms of total sales made. And at this stage, you're often the busy builder. What are some of the challenges that you see being head of member success that people run up against in this stage of their growth and development?
Yeah, so typically the first 2 problems that you run into is either like a time or a profit one. And time being that like because you genuinely have to do everything, like you don't yet have the revenue to afford an office manager, or maybe you do on some occasion, but you'll be doing like a lot of the things first. So time will be typically your biggest barrier, as well as profitability in regards to just knowing the basics of your foundations of your numbers. Like do you actually price to a target margin of 20%? Or were you just doing that to markup or lower than that?
Yeah.
And they're typically the 2 big constraints that I would typically see that we run into. And just straight up, even for every level we go through, business is all about solving your biggest and your next constraint.
Yeah.
So you want to think, what is the biggest constraint for you right now? And you want to look into solving that either with a process or a people, typically. Yeah. And that's really the way we look at it. Like, do you have a people problem or a process problem? Yeah. But in startup phase or in the builder, as the builder identity phase, you're first wanting to look into reclaiming your time so you actually have time to focus on profit generating activities or pipeline building activities. So whether that's getting more leads, converting at a higher margin or converting more projects at profitable margins, or just increasing your average contract value. Like these are the key mindset shifts that you need to start making, and also the activities that you need to do that associate with that. So is that in your default calendar? Have you done a stop doing list to buy back some time? Like maybe your first hire is like a virtual assistant, which you might only pay, like $5-10 an hour for, and might even be on a part-time basis, but they might buy back 20 hours of your time. That could be 33% of your week gone, that now you can focus that energy and attention on profit generating activities or revenue generating activities as well. Totally. I look at that.
100%. So if you're in the startup or survival phase, then you typically want to solve the problem for running profitable projects. So we want to make sure that every project is profitable because we, like I've already said, don't scale through an economy of scale. Every job must pay for itself, and we can't be having Peter, Rob, Paul to pay the projects back. So we must make sure that every job is profitable. Minimum margins, clear method of putting them through a sales process and attracting the right leads, and then making sure that we stick them to timeline, budget, and quality standard. We must dial that in. So that's typically like, meat and potatoes of stage one, which is, that startup and survival. Once we cross that threshold, and normally in terms of total sales revenue, it's going to be around that 1.2 to 1.5 mil mark. You're going to have enough cash coming in, hopefully at the right margins, to be able to like buy your time back, enjoy a good standard of income, and it shouldn't be an absolute cluster for everyone involved. And this is where we hit the stability phase. So the stability phase is totally fine to stay there. Not an issue. We're not in the business of telling people what business to build. We're in the business of helping them build it faster, right? So we're either bridging a time gap or a knowledge gap. People come to us because they go, I want to achieve this in 12 months instead of 36, or they come to us saying, I just don't know what I don't know. Like I've been taught how to be a great builder, but not yet a great business owner. So this stability phase could be where people decide to chill out and stay. Not an issue at all. But to maintain this stuff, we're going to have to start getting some repeating and recurring systems in place and make sure that everything just doesn't live in the owner's head, because you're hit by the proverbial bus and we're in a world of hurt.
Exactly right. So that's why probably one of the first systems, if you're around that stability phase, you want to be mapping out just a basic A to Z, what we refer to as A to Z of operations. So from start to finish, from pre-construction to post-construction, what is actually the flow chart of events? Who is responsible for it? It's probably going to be you for doing like 50 to 75% of that, but you got to put that in. And how will they execute it? And if there's no how attached to that, you don't have a system. And that means it's living in your head, which is an opportunity to develop a system or hire a team to be able to build that for you. Because once you have that there, then that's what's going to stabilize your business. You're not in stability if you cannot go on a holiday for 2 to 4 weeks and the business will still operate without you. You need to build a team, build the systems, and let them run it for you. It's probably one of like the most, I think, impactful systems you can put in place around that stage. And that will help you actually have a business and become a business owner, not be a builder that's still relied on and to be there.
Yeah, bit of a busy job with overheads instead.
Yeah, that's not what you want.
So the A to Z of ops, really important. You've already mentioned that each flow chart piece or each stage of that A to Z of ops should have a who and a how.
Yeah.
Right?
Really important.
And if that who is your name, then that's okay for now.
Yeah.
All right. But we want to go from your name being against 100% of them to 80% of them to 75% of them to 2/3 of them to 50% of them. And ideally you are out of the A to Z of operations and you are out of the day-to-day operating of the business so that you don't work in the company, but you work on and above the business. There will still be times where you reach down and you get your hands dirty and you do this and you do that. But by and large, I'm talking like 4 days out of 5, you're able to push the business forward and run the business rather than work in the business and really be the person that's answering emails, picking up the phone, making sure that things are on time, timeline, quality standard, budget, money's in the bank account, things getting paid. That one day might be split across a couple, but realistically we want that to happen before we then kick on to the next stage of business, which is the scale phase, essentially, right? And the scale is when we're going to push beyond the 2.5 mil or $3 million mark and kind of go up another notch. And that's where we're normally going to have to replicate and duplicate our sites. We're going to need to bring in more foremen, qualified guys, and processes so that we're not just reliant on one weapon of a foreman. We can actually duplicate and run multiple sites profitably at one time.
This is arguably what I've seen. In some cases, the riskiest or the phase that things can go wrong really badly, really quickly. And I think it's from the mindset that most builders, when they're at this level, they just think that if they continue doing what they've done, they can run the business the same way, but at 5 mil or 6 mil.
Yeah.
And that is far from the truth and one of the biggest mistakes that they'll make. And the reason for that is you will outgrow your systems, which means your systems need to grow with the business.
Yeah.
And what got you to 2.5 to 3 mil revenue is not going to be the thing that's going to get you from 5 to 6 or 2.5 to 6.
Yeah.
And maybe even they might scale, let's just say the project size, for example. They go from 300K, 400K, 500K contracts to one, like talking 7 figures now, like 1 to 2 mil.
Yeah.
and they don't realize that like one tiny screw up on a project could eliminate all their profits that they worked on that one project. And it's like so influential. You need to be so much more dialed in. You need to be so much more on top of your team. You need to have a very strong management team that you can rely on and that you can trust. They need to report to you with answers and solutions, that you can't be solving problems for them. And so if you're in this stage, I'm just saying this as not a cautionary tale, but like just to more say, stabilize yourself first. Understand that you need to have your systems growing with your business.
Yep.
And if you're growing, like if you are in that scale phase, which is and some people want to be here, and that's cool. Like some people want to run a $5 million building company. Totally cool. We want to help you do that as well.
Yeah.
Point being, like, don't just assume that what got you to 3 mil is going to be the thing that gets you to 5. Like, it's not going to happen.
It's about bridging that gap. So we've spoken previously about like your revenue in that scale phase is going to trend upwards. Mm-hmm. Your gross profit should trend typically parallel relatively to it, but your net profit is going to go up, down, side to side. And it's about understanding what is required and how long it will take to go from good net profit to good net profit, because there will be bad net profit in the middle there. And understanding why that's depressed, why it's down, and what we're going to need to do to fix it and how long it's going to take to fix it is going through the scale phase. It's adding the people, it's adding the process, it's making sure that we maintain the basics, because these people at this point never don't do the basics well.
No, that's true.
Still pricing to a minimum margin, raising their margin sometimes because they've now got more overhead, right? And they need to make sure that they service that. So it's getting the right systems in place at this point. And this is going to normally typically look like making sure that we've got like project management software, the right software stacks, good coaching. You always should be hiring. We have a really clear sales choreography or a quotas and action plan so that we're able to convert jobs without competing on price.
Nice.
We're able to like have a good financial reports every single month, a work in progress, a really dialed in change order or variation process, and make sure that we're budgeting for scale. So we've got like a cash flow forecast and we've got a good stuff.
I think the biggest thing as well at this level is if you don't have all your margin levers dialed in regards to like probably at this point you should be pricing to target margin of minimum of 20%. You should be at this point.
Yes.
If not, your goal is not to scale revenue. Your goal is to scale margin and profits first.
Totally.
But like if that's the case for you and you're not at 20% margin, well then that's your first thing. You need to look into your positioning, your pricing, your sales, and your marketing.
Yeah.
But when you're doing these larger jobs and these larger revenues, and we're talking that 7-figure or 3 million beyond, you want to have your back-end margin levers dialed in to a T. Like you should be tracking your labor forecast versus the actual, whether that's in dollars or whether that's in hours. You just need to have some form of tracking in place. You need to have a clear plan that if you are behind the schedule or behind the budget, you need to kick basically the foreman up the arse and say, dude, we're behind track.
Yep.
You need to get into your team at hard. Because like this is that, like the biggest variable to lose money on a construction project will be their labor. Like you should have that absolutely dialed in if you're doing large projects. Are you capturing variations and charging an admin fee and not just charging like what the project will be worth, but you're actually factoring in what 1 day of site delays is worth to you as well? Because there's a lot of hidden costs that a lot of builders don't understand. Like they still got to pay their overheads at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, that's what we went through that whole training with Lloyd on, was the cost of close down.
Exactly right.
Yeah,
exactly
we have
right.
that calculator.
It was so valuable. Yeah, exactly right. But these are just things that like are hidden to builders that they don't fully understand. So you need to have this stuff fully dialed in, fully understandable to you. Like I'm really stressing this here because like the answer might not be going to 5 mil. You might need to make your business way more resilient first before you scale up.
Mm-hmm. Love it. So after the scale phase, so let's just recap. We got the startup, survival, stability, scale. I kind of lumped together startup and survival because ultimately like
that's cool.
It's execution.
Yeah.
Get shit done. And many people are kind of like reaching the next step from there. So startup, survival, stability, and scale. We're now at success. And then the last one is significance. So success is going to be usually where we should have a relatively predictable and profitable company, and we should have the cash flow and the free cash flow, I should say. So profit over and after our overheads to invest and to solve some problems. Because remember, as a business owner, you got points of leverage, and one of those points of leverage is the ability to deploy money, right? So solve problems with some cash. You can solve problems with people, with process, with money, with media, right? So like, for example, we can sign more contracts via video testimonials. That would be media. through people, that would be a sales rep, and through process, that would be a presentation of quotas and action plan. Okay. So typically at the scale, at the success phase, we're getting to a point where we could start solving some problems with some money, which is fun. We can start doing some spec builds, we can start doing some developments, we can start making sure that we're hiring real talent at the top of market, and we can go and bring in real superstars, and we can start really building the business that we want. And at this point, we should be looking at some of the trainings and some of the systems around like the 100-day holiday method, around the training for your team, around advanced lead generation strategies, making sure that we're not just reliant on word of mouth. If we've managed to get this far with just that, then
well done.
Yes, but we should be really doubling and tripling down on other stuff as well. We want to be making sure that we're employer of choice that we've spoken about previously, making sure that we can attract great talent all the time, because at this size of a company, you're always recruiting. You're basically a recruiting marketing firm as well. We want to make sure we've got the right org chart for the projects you're doing. So what is the split between contractors and employees? We want to make sure that we've got a really dialed in profit first and balance sheet as well, making sure that we've got this reporting in place so that we can kind of move to the significance phase, which is probably going to be above 15 million rev. 15 to 20 million rev and up above there is when we're in the significance phase. And this is where we're like really funding developments, making sure that we're maximizing our business valuation. Because at this point, you should be working out, you've got an asset here that needs to be maximized in terms of its asset value. So the resiliency and the leadership team in place, because you might want to structure a buy-in. Okay, and you're going to want to probably absolutely dominate a local market or be looking at secondary markets to enter into. So setting up other locations or expanding into other parts of the city. Do you want to walk us through a little bit around the success and the significance phases in these last two?
Yeah, so at this point, you've probably got a pretty solid building company. As you're saying, you've got nice cash flow, you've got nice profits, you probably have a good team, and you're probably considering, at this stage actually, there's a lot of different options that you can take, right? Like you can either continue doing what you're doing, you can either start a second location and duplicate your business, you can either...
Just like Richard.
Yeah, exactly like Richard, yeah. His case, his case, he hired a general manager to duplicate his business. And that's what was success looking like to him. Could be the same for everyone else here. Could be that you're wanting to invest in property. It could be that you wanted to start doing developments. It could be that you want to sell your business. It could be that you want to structure buying, like you said. I think at this stage, it's like have clarity on what your business end game will look like. Like, what is it that actually to you? Do you want to, like, are you in your later years and you're like, you know what, I'm out of this, I want to sell? Or that you want to bring in a new person? Like, you need to understand what that is first, and then really set up the business up in a way that can run, obviously it should be running without you at this point, but to operate without you. And even with that being said, we actually have a really nice business valuation checklist that we have our members go through at this level to showcase all the things you need to maximize the sale price of your business. Because really at the end of the day, even if you're not setting out for sale, you should have the right systems in place in your business to be in a position to sell. Because you want to maximize the asset that you have. You want to maximize the value that it can be worth. And so I think they're the key considerations you want to make. Is like, if we pick, at this stage, we should be able to pick you up, throw you into Bali or Fiji for a month, and the business is operating very nice without you. And if that's the case, well, then you're probably going to get a high multiple and it's going to be pretty nice. But you need to have clarity on where you want to get to first. That's like priority one at this stage.
Yeah. Nice. So my recommendation for everybody is to kind of audit themselves against the roadmap. Because what it does is it breaks these 6 stages down, and you can see which systems you should have in place and you could have in place. So then you can identify what ones you're going to put in place next. And what you should also do is do the health audit. So on our website, there's the health audit. It gives you a score out of 100, and it helps to identify kind of like examples of people that have broken those barriers that you're probably running up against for the stages of business that you're at. Because in the early days, you're probably running up against a time constraint. And the next stage, you're probably running up against a cash flow and profit constraint. Then you're probably running up against a finding great talent constraint. And then it's usually going to be like software and what systems to use, right? There's stuff at every level. It's never going to be smooth sailing, but we can do our best to build some resilience and some sustainability. And so start there, health audit and roadmap.
Nice.
Hope today's been helpful. Any final words?
No, just whatever level that you're at, understand what is your biggest and next constraint to solve. It's the really biggest thing. And understand that scaling is not always going to be the answer for most cases. Sometimes you want to stabilize first, solve where you're currently at, and then really determine what your end game is. Like, is it to run a well-systemized building company that runs without you? Is it to scale to 10, 20, 30 mil per year and do like 100 homes a year? Like, if that's you, good for you, like 100%. We want to support you, but just understand, you need to have the processes, the systems, the right people in place. And no matter what level you're at, there's always going to be something you can do to get to the next level, what that will be for you.
Yeah. And we've got members at both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
So it's like, we specialize in residential and we're very tight on that. But we don't discriminate in terms of what kind of residential you want to build. Like, we've got members that are building like almost you might call like a lifestyle building company, and then guys that are just going to the moon and doing big developments and really cool big things. And then everybody else in the middle. So, whatever you're building, get into the right community with the right systems, shortcut that with the right, processes and playbooks. So here's to your success. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Want to go more in depth on today's topic and buy back more time whilst earning more money? Get a free business health audit and plenty of free resources over on our website, theprofessionalbuilder.com.